Faith is indestructible. For the initiated, the certitudes of belief exalt human aspiration to visions of divine solace, but it can defy the dispassionate explorations of skeptical rationality. As millions lift their hearts in fervent prayer to the gods who can appear indifferent to their recurrent miseries and blind to their resilient hopes, the quest for exemplary blessedness becomes an inviolate aspect of the human condition. For a nation where organized religion looms large like God and Judgment Day, the sacred and the temporal appear inevitably to impinge on and defile each other. Consequently, any search for a definition of communalism must conclude that it is, quite simply, an exploitation of religions for earthly purposes. Jawaharlal Nehru, agnostic and man of impeccable virtue, thundered against the deformed posturings of communalism with a restless vehemence. The alliance of religion and politics in the shape of communalism is a most dangerous alliance, and it yields the most abnormal kind of illegitimate brood. Through history, political ambition has demonstrated a potent desire for power over the mass of men. As a secondary instrument of attaining that beckoning power, religion can become, in the language of the law courts, an accessory to crime. Indeed, politics, with its conscienceless strivings, debases the renunciatory nobility of unadorned faith. It promotes a sort of civil conflict which leaves the faithful asking one terrible question: is God dead? Has religion in the end evoked more hatred than love, more violence than peace?
That is our political foolishness in India. We allowed, when we established our political state on a secular basis, religious communal political parties. If we had stopped it from the very beginning of independence, there would have been none of these problems. Even now it is not too late that communal parties and a secular political state can never go together. Let people realize it for the good of both the political state and religion. You don't get the best of religion when it comes to politics. You need a lot of violence, lot of trickery, lot of untruth.
He or she, you see, actually serving the religion, but because they too much emotion, so that time, you see, that person, you see, cannot see the reality. So you see, wrong action is often, you see, happen. And then religious organization or religious institution and politics, perhaps in that case, I think they separate things better.
Religion should be a private affair of every individual, but then it has certain formal, even state, to some extent, state aided or state sponsored or state encouraged forms. And some of those lead to problems and troubles. But primarily, I think people in this country do like to treat religion as a private affair.
Religion is part of life. There should be no fanaticism, no exclusivism. But religion is part of life. One should feel small before the concept of divinity, God. Why should it be diverse from our life? It is part of our life. When you sit down, when you get up, many of us say, Hey Ram. It's part of our life. Why should anybody quarrel with that? People's culture is very much there. This culture will reflect itself in politics also, yes, to that limited extent. But when it comes to civil matters, everybody has the same rights, same responsibilities.
हिंदुस्तान को मुत्तहिद रखने के लिए, हिंदुस्तान को टुकड़े होने से बचाने के लिए सेकुलरिज्म ज़रूरी है, क्योंकि इस मुल्क की तारीख़ ये बताती है कि यहाँ पर ताकत से मुल्क का इत्तेहाद कायम नहीं रह सकता, क्योंकि यहाँ मुख्तलिफ मज़ाहिब के मानने वाले रहते हैं, मुख्तलिफ तहज़ीबों और ज़बानों के मानने वाले हमेशा से रहते आए हैं, मुख्तलिफ ज़बानों के मानने वाले यहाँ पर रहे हैं। इस्लाम के आने से पहले भी यहाँ पर बुद्ध, जैन और सनातन धर्म के मानने वालों में बाहमी झगड़े रहे हैं। इसलिए मुल्क के इत्तेहाद और सालिमियत के लिए सेकुलरिज्म जरूरी है।
India is a country where we all believe in some religion or the other. We have faiths and strong beliefs and faiths. We cannot separate our lives from religion, but definitely we can separate politics from religion. And when politics and religions have come together, this has created the problem. But the tragedy today is people take the name of religion and they try to divide the society. And in this division, in this melee, the weakest of the weaker suffer.
Religion should not be used for economic domination or economic deprivation. Our conflict is not a religious conflict. If we can have a secular polity which ensures equal justice to all human beings, I think this conflict will die out, because at heart we Indians recognize each other as brothers and sisters, and I think we can get over this present sort of sick kind of attitude in which we see the other religion as an enemy which has to be put down. I think that we'll get over.
As an agnostic, I know that inherent to all religions is a sense of superiority, that they have the repositories of the ultimate truth, which is there is no truth in that. All religions have something to say and lot of garbage attached to it. And therefore I feel that we put the clock back altogether by several hundred years, and we have to somehow do something to arrest this march backwards that has taken place in the last few years. It doesn't tally with any code of ethics as known to us, not to hurt people, not to tell lies. And all our religious leaders today, and particularly politicians indulging in religion, have been caught out lying over and over again and preaching violence. Women in saffron preaching violence, men with caste marks preaching violence and hatred against other communities.
Like Spinoza, who asserted that the highest power of scriptural interpretation belongs to every man, the Sufi mystics reflect Islam's inner dimension by declaring their celebrated doctrine of the unity of being. Everything which exists can only exist because it is an aspect of divine reality, hence an aspect of the divine unity itself. Misunderstood as pantheism, this is a metaphysical extension of the Quran's famous injunction, everywhere you turn, there is the face of God. Many paths lead to the source. Believers call the source the ultimate reality, the infinite God, Brahman, the Great Spirit, Allah, and other names depending upon culture or religious frames of reference. Those who seek the ultimate mystery relate to everything that is true and of genuine spiritual value in every religious and cultural tradition. They resonate to human values wherever they are found, whether in religion, science, art, human friendship, or the service of others. It is not a homogenizing of human values. It is rather a centering of one's attention upon what unites rather than what divides. True unity is expressed in pluralism, unity in the experience of the ultimate values of human life, pluralism in one's unique response to these values in the concrete circumstances of life.
We are experiencing a time of, in a sense, the search for a legitimacy in the interpretation of Islam in relation to the modern world in relation to modern society, in relation to non-Muslim societies. And in that search, there are all sorts of interpretations being put forward. I personally am very cautious about seeking a formalistic approach, because I think that one of the great risks, apart from the fact that it does tend to deny individuality, which is of course something strongly upheld in the Islamic faith, is the fact that it tends to anchor a faith in one time. And that is one aspect which of my faith which I would never accept. Essentially in my belief in the message of Islam, which is that you must not impede or damage or do anything to hurt the people amongst which you live. On the contrary, you seek to build relations with them and uphold their quality of life. And indeed, you mentioned just now this issue of polarization. One of the ways to polarize societies is to divide them. And I think that on the contrary, anything that can be done to bring them together, to develop common objectives in improving their quality of life is perfectly acceptable. That doesn't mean that individuals don't practice their faith. That is their right.
हम धर्म और मजहब का तो नाम लेते हैं, ना तो धर्म ये सिखाता है किसी से बैर रखो, हमें गुरु ग्रंथ साहब में से शिक्षा मिलती है, ना को बैरी ना है बेगाना, सगल संग हमको बनाई। वहीं से हमें ये भी शिक्षा मिलती है, एक बताए किसके हम बारक, और वहीं से हमें ये भी शिक्षा मिलती है, अव्वल अल्लाह नूर उपाया कुदरत के सब बंदे, एक नूर ते सब जो जाए कौन भले को मंदे। फिर वही हमें ये भी शिक्षा मिलती है, हम नहीं चंगे बुरा नहीं कोई, ये भी शिक्षा हमें मिलती है।
Christianity cannot be divisive of people, it must always be uniting people by love. Of course there is a division between believer and unbeliever, but that believer-unbeliever division is not to be based on a hatred or on a dislike or any fighting. The important thing is that the believer should be united by love. But in Christianity, from my point of view, the most important teaching is that every human being is created in the image of God and therefore has his or her own God-given dignity. Whether you are Hindu, Christian, Muslim, it doesn't make any difference.
Lord Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that man may worship different gods, but I am the one who will answer the prayer every time. It is I who answer all the prayers. What does it mean? But you see, and then so many things, Swami Vivekananda's teachings, if people followed them, this kind of thing would not take place. So anyway, now we have a long haul in front of us, because you have to carry on a sustained campaign of patiently arguing and explaining to people. It's very easy to work up passions or work up religious sentiments. There's nothing difficult about it. Difficulty is in trying to create an atmosphere of tolerance, of compassion. You see, what is man? Man is not an animal. Sorry, I should not say that. Some people were saying, I said, you don't insult the animals. They don't behave like this. Animals don't go attacking other animals because unless they are attacked themselves. But what have we become?
You have to define religion. You have to define your terms. A Hindu might be a Shaivite, Vaishnavite, Arya Samajist, Sanatani, Brahmo. He can even be atheist. You see, I can believe in one God or 10,000 gods or no God, and still I am a Hindu. So there's no such thing as Hindu religion. See, all the congregations of these religious faiths have come to be known as Hinduism. A Hindu does not mind saying, Kabir said it ages ago, Ram Rahim ek hai, Krishna Kareem ek hai, Kashi Kaaba ek hai.
कोई मजहब एक दूसरे से लड़ने का पैगाम नहीं देता, ये सबक नहीं देता कि निहत्थे इंसानों को राह चलते हुए, इबादत करते हुए घरों में घुसकर मारा जाए। कुछ लोग हो सकते हैं कि जो जलते हुए मकानों को, जलते हुए इंसानों को, बच्चों की चीखों को देखकर सुकून महसूस करते हैं, लेकिन जाहिर है कि आम हिंदू इसको पसंद नहीं कर सकता, आम मुसलमान इसको पसंद नहीं कर सकता। और जो लोग ऐसा करते हैं शायद वो इंसान नहीं, हैवान से ज्यादा बदतर हैं।
I don't think it's hatred. I think that it's more like competition. It is not, people cannot hate religion. Yeah, I love every single religion, but I'm in love with my own. You see, that's the attitude should be with all of us. We must love and respect every religion, but you must be in love with your own.
As an old country continues to struggle after different gods, Indian secularism becomes, at least theoretically, a responsive idea. By seeking to banish religious belief to the sphere of the individual conscience, Indian secularism remains responsive to the imperatives of our recent history. The past, after all, illustrates the inexorable, cyclical character of sectarian discord. Apart from a rigorous separation of the powers of church and state and the firm rejection of an official religion, the efficacy of Indian secularism must be judged, in the final analysis, on the treatment accorded to the religious minorities. Jawaharlal Nehru underlined the dangers of asserting narrow cultural identities. This foolhardy separatism, he argued, caused the minorities to remain imprisoned in constricted ghettos. Nehru declared, such a minority injures its own interest because inevitably it puts a barrier between itself and the others, a barrier not on the religious plane, but on the political one.
The word secularism, English is quite all right, though what is understood in the West is not what we understand here. There is secularism is no religion or even anti-religion. Here we don't disturb any religion in our secular attitude. We only say every religion has a place in India. India is a land of harmony. One mistake we did in the beginning itself, that the Hindi translation of the word secular state. It has done immense harm to the character of the people. That translation is Dharma Nirapeksha Rashtra. Now there can be no Rashtra without Dharma. Dharma is ethical sense, a concern for others.
We think that the whole word should be dropped. We should talk of Dharma. Dharma means a just and moral order. These are wrong words and wrong concepts which have no relationship to Indian history or Indian reality. The very word and concept of secularism is foreign to India, because secularism implies separation of church and state. In India, there is no such thing as a Hindu church. There is not even a Muslim church. So how do you separate? What are not mixed up?
Dharma is not religion. Dharma is derived from the central Sanskrit root dhri, which simply means to uphold, to support, to sustain. So as a derivative, dharma is that in which everything, the whole of human life, is supported, upheld. It is not religion. Now see this, let us consider this situation. The word religion is introduced into India. It is further assumed that there is something called Hinduism, and Hinduism is a religion. It is now seen as the religion of the majority of the people of India. So the concept of majority is introduced. Now all those who are not Hindus, they belong to a minority, and a religious minority at that. So already minority and majority, these two powerful words are introduced into Indian consciousness. Now imagine yourself as a member of a minority community. What kind of consciousness does this word produce? What kind of emotions does this word produce? It is quite obvious that I see myself as a member of a minority community as being surrounded by something that is not me. And then that something which is not me is perceived as something which is hostile to me, from which I have to protect my religion, my faith, my language, my customs, my law, my way of life, everything.
Being a multi-religious country, a multicultural country, multilinguistic country, secularism should mean equal rights for everybody and equal respect and consideration for each other's faiths. It's as simple as that. Karl Marx gave a very prophetic warning, and that was that religion can be used to uplift people, and it can also be used to promote conflicts between people and to divert their attention from the realities of day-to-day life, which may be causing those same people a great deal of suffering and so on. So in that sense, I do believe it is the opium of the people. It is being used like that.
My time in college, for instance, all the best students were Marxist. They were non-religious. We looked upon any boy who subscribed to religion or ritual as an archaic and outdated individual. Now I see the reverse process even in our universities and schools. You see a revival of religious interest, and not in the broad sense of an ethical code or better behavior, but in separatism as being distinct. I am a Hindu, I am a Muslim, I am a Sikh, I am a Christian. Now, in my time, we would have been ashamed to speak that language. We would have said, I am an Indian, and forget it.
Baba Ante, a natural Gandhian, and Mother Teresa, exemplar of worship as charity, illustrate the dynamic relevance of this definition. Like the Mahatma, they believe that the means and ends are convertible terms. Although Gandhi described himself as an orthodox, conservative Hindu, his conservatism was not to be found at the level of traditional scriptural interpretation, but at the level of spiritual discipline. Seekers of the ultimate mystery perceive themselves as citizens of the earth. Their first loyalty is to the human family as a whole, in individual human beings, especially in those who are suffering. The particularities of race, nationalism, religion and culture can be transcended without reacting against them or trying to destroy them.
In this world, it's very easy to die for your country, but it's extremely difficult to live for your country. I am trying to motivate the students and the youths and my patients how to live for your country. It's very extremely easy to die for your principles. Mazhab khatre mein, religion is in danger, and you see the crusades and the tragedy which takes. But it's very extremely difficult to live according to those principles. In such country, then spurious spiritualism is generated. Really, religion ought to teach us righteousness. Religion has taught us RITs, religious rights, and we quarrel and fight over them. It is strange that man seeks sublime inspiration in the ruins of old temples or churches, but sees none in the ruins of man.
we are working among massive ruins of man. These very eyes seeing beauty in Acropolis, in Taj Mahal, in Fatehpur Sikri, but refusing to see beauty in the ruins of man, social injustice. And instead of seeing beauty, why eternal repulsion right from the biblical period? So my struggle is for the just man, the last man, the lost man.
Forgive and forget. And begin again from the beginning. The tender love and care for what India is now. Unity and love. No? For did Gandhiji always proclaim. Yeah. No, I think there isn't a people that love. It is being misused now, I think. Or misguided or misused.
I believe that his work is his worship, such a simple thing. Then when I read Bible, in one of my poems I said, I cannot carry the mighty load of his cross, but can I not attempt to walk in the shadow of that cross and become his contemporary? About Gandhi also, same thing. On his left side of to his rib was attached a badge of suffering, which is always attached to our also ribs. But on this side, there was another badge which I saw. That badge was badge of staunch confidence. Vedana or Vishwas. Vedana hoti hai aadmi mein, Vishwas nahi hota.
The works of love are always works of peace. And the joy of loving is in the joy of sharing.
To do according to those principles. In such countries, then spurious spiritualism is generated. Really, religion ought to teach us righteousness. Religion has taught us RITS, religious rights, and we quarrel and fight over them. It is strange that man seeks sublime inspiration in the ruins of old temples or churches, but sees none in the ruins of man. We are working among massive ruins of man. These very eyes seeing beauty in Acropolis, in Taj Mahal, in Fatehpur Sikri, but refusing to see beauty in the ruins of man, social injustice. And instead of seeing beauty, why eternal repulsion right from the biblical period? So my struggle is for the just man, the last man, the lost man.
These works of love are works of peace. Yeah, but even the smallest little thing, that so many poor people came and gave me things to give to the people. That is something very, very beautiful. I never thought that this thing would happen like that. So that shows you that people, majority of people are feeling very, very bad about it. And that's forgive and forget. And begin again from the beginning. The tender love and care for what India is now. Unity and love. No? For did Gandhiji always proclaim. Yeah. No, I think there isn't a people that love. It is being misused now, or misguided or misused.
I believe that his work is his worship, such a simple thing. Then when I read Bible, in one of my poems I said, I cannot carry the mighty load of his cross, but can I not attempt to walk in the shadow of that cross and become his contemporary? About Gandhi also, same thing. On this side on his left side to his rib was attached a badge of suffering, which is always attached to our also ribs. But on this side, there was another badge which I saw. That badge was badge of staunch confidence. वेदना और विश्वास, वेदना होती है आदमी में, विश्वास नहीं होता.
Works of love are always works of peace. And the joy of loving is in the joy of sharing.
Wrong action is often happen, and then religious organization or religious institution and politics, perhaps in that case I think they separate things better.
Religion should be a private affair of every individual, but then it has certain formal, even state, to some extent, state aided or state sponsored or state encouraged forms, and some of those lead to problems and troubles. But primarily I think people in this country do like to treat religion as a private affair.
Religion is part of life. There should be no fanaticism, no exclusivism.
Becomes an inviolate aspect of the human condition. For a nation where organized religion looms large like God and Judgment Day, the sacred and the temporal appear inevitably to impinge on and defile each other. Consequently, any search for a definition of communalism must conclude that it is, quite simply, an exploitation of religions for earthly purposes. Jawaharlal Nehru, agnostic and man of impeccable virtue, thundered against the deformed posturings of communalism with a restless vehemence. The alliance of religion and politics in the shape of communalism is a most dangerous alliance, and it yields Faith is indestructible. For the initiated, the certitudes of belief exalt human aspiration to visions of divine solace, but it can defy the dispassionate explorations of skeptical rationality. As millions lift their hearts in fervent prayer to the gods who can appear indifferent to their recurrent miseries and blind to their resilient hopes, the quest for exemplary blessedness.
We allowed, when we established our political state on a secular basis, religious communal political parties. If we had stopped it from the very beginning of independence, there would have been none of these problems. Even now it is not too late that communal parties and a secular political state can never go together. Let people realize it for the good of both the political state and religion. You don't get the best of religion when it comes to politics. You need a lot of violence, lot of trickery, lot of untruth.
He or she, actually serving the religion, but because they too much emotion, so that time, that person cannot see the reality. So it's
the most abnormal kind of illegitimate brood. Through history, political ambition has demonstrated a potent desire for power over the mass of men. As a secondary instrument of attaining that beckoning power, religion can become, in the language of the law courts, an accessory to crime. Indeed, politics with its conscienceless strivings debases the renunciatory nobility of unadorned faith. It promotes a sort of civil conflict which leaves the faithful asking one terrible question: is God dead? Has religion in the end evoked more hatred than love, more violence than peace?
That is our political foolishness in India.